as well as you should, the abatement lists. Mr. Dulce was going to be here to speak to these tonight. He had an emergency procedure done today, so ultimately he's not here. So if there are any other quite detailed questions, I would like to hold off on asking him to get you the answers. But most things are pretty standard. If you look at what the explanations are, the total amount of credit for these abatements between the two periods is about $45,000. Based on my discussion with Mr. Dulce, it doesn't look like there'll be that much more abatements coming through this year, as they've already been through the lion's share of them. The deadline is, I believe, the end of October to file for an abatement. So ultimately, I will open it up to any specific questions you have. If I can't answer it, I will gather information and reply to you tomorrow.
The only question I have is the huge delta between the old and new assessment on Q-Tech LLC.
Yeah.
Because that accounts for $30,000.
It's almost, yeah, it's 2/3 of it. Ultimately, the company Q-Tech filed multiple filings for every location when one of the filings included everything for all locations. So they sent in more assessor returns, and ultimately we process based on the assessor returns. So if they sent us 5 returns for $1 million each, we process $5 million. If they mistakenly sent us 5 instead of sending us 1, that's on them, but it's legitimate as to why the abatement's there. If you'd like further detail, I can definitely get it for you.
So that would be down right below it then, that QML Incorporated? No?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No, that's just the Q-Tech one. QML is a separate thing. It's actually an increase in assessment.
I see, yeah, sorry, I got confused on that too.
It's the same one, if you see C account number 1207-37 over there.
Yeah, but the same explanation applies, that multiple filings is why they were
Oh.
overall overcharged. This corrects to the filings of what they should have filed with us.
Okay.
So one, you know, if you look at it, one goes down, one goes up, but it's because they never correctly filed any of them.
Okay.
So,
Jason, they're all numbered, at least they're, no, they're not. It was sheet 1.
yes.
The one with the date on it of 8/15/16. Holliston Sand Company, 4th one up from the bottom. There is an old tax credit, 1840, credit $1,840.56. Assigned to wrong account number and company name, should be housed in logistics, limited liability, rebuild under new account number.
Yep.
So, I know it's kind of redundancy here, but it's, Holliston just has another limited liability account number.
Yeah, they have multiple different businesses that file with us.
Yeah. So the 1840 was picked up on another account. In essence, it became a debit for another account?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see it on here, but I'll ask the question
Yeah,
of
please.
when or where that rebill is.
And this other one's kind of a minor one, but I remember this.
Sure.
On sheet 1 with the 000 dates, the next one. Second one from the bottom, it's dealing with a 2004 Airstream camper overvalue. I've seen that a number of times in my past 12 years here. So
Okay, I'll check on that one for you.
I
for
get it,
history.
12 years going back, they didn't have a 2014, but I've seen this recently, so one of the things you can just keep an eye on that. Just check it out.
I'll run a history on that taxpayer and see what I
Yeah,
can come
again,
up for you.
that, you know, this is 2014, they may have had it done before too, and rightly so, they're entitled to it, but
I'll put that on the list.
for some reason it's stuck in my mind. Thanks, Jason, for humoring me. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the abatements.
Second.
Motion by the chair, second by Councilman Zawinski to approve the abatements. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Sol?
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Boucher?
Yes.
Do it.
Item 8, discussion by council of one other action on bid for OPEB post-employment actuarial evaluation services. Mr. Parmelee.
Thanks again, Mr. President. What was in the packet before you for tonight's meeting for this OPEB, every 2 years we do a actuarial study as to what our liability for post-employment benefits are. At this point in time, we went out and received 4 bids that met our specifications. Of them, our existing company from 2 years ago who performed our valuation, Danziger Markov LLP, came in as the low bidder. Being that they have familiarity with us and they are the low bidder, I am recommending that they receive this contract from us to do the services. Ultimately, the funding is about $1,000 more than this in contractual services audit line item. So this is under what we projected the cost to be. So it looks pretty fair to me to go with the same entity that has done it in the past. Any questions?
Mr. President, unless there's questions, I'll make a motion to approve the award of the bid second year for OPEB post-employment actually valuation services to Danziger Markov LLP for the amount of $4,750.
Motion by Councilman Zawinski, second by the chair to do so, to approve. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Alves? Yes. Mr. Sol?
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski?
Yes.
Mr. Boucher?
Yes. Item F, discussion by council, vote on action on general fund year recap. Mr. Parmelee.
Thank you again. It's like 5 in a row, 7 in a row or something.
Thank you, sir. May I have another?
I know. Ultimately, what I did is I did a recap of the general fund. Per our charter, 60 days after year end, I'm supposed to give a recap, an unaudited recap of where I project us to be. Page 1 is a recap of the bottom line, but what I also wanted to do is give you on page 2 every council vote that hasn't been fully expended by year end. And we'll call it page 1 through 28 is the actual data from our accounting software that you can see my page 1 starts with. So ultimately, if I do the accounting entries to what our fund balance is, the current year budget basis profit is about $500,000. The current year actual basis profit is $1,047,000. The difference between those numbers is what's highlighted in the bottom section. These are all the votes of the council throughout the year of items that have not been fully spent or spent at all. If you look through there, the council voted to, again, fund PRISM. What we haven't paid PRISM is in here as a reserve. So all of these items accumulate to about $550,000. One thing I wanted to mention is not all of them will be spent until the directive is given by the council to spend it. So for example, the OPEB funding for $100,000 sits on our books until we start a retirement trust that we actually pay the money to. If we never start a trust, it just sits on our balance sheet. If we start a trust, it goes off our balance sheet onto the trust's balance sheet, which is ultimately our retirement plan account. So certain items that get us from one number to the other are kind of artificial until the council votes to spend it. So another item, the MS4 needs reserve for highway of $20,000. June 13th, the council voted to set aside $20,000 for MS4 needs. Until you decide to spend it, it's just 20 in reserve, so it's really not anything until the cost comes and you associate something with it. Another thing I wanted to mention, at any time, based on these votes, the council can re-vote and say, we don't want that $20,000 for MS4, we want it for the sign and the spruce up the highway. I don't know, it can be re-voted to whatever you want to at any point in time. I just want to make that clear because we have reserves on our books that might not necessarily be needed as reserves on our books. But then again, I don't make that call, the council makes that call, which is why I want to provide the level of detail I provided. So in there you can see everything that was voted on throughout the year. And ultimately, I think this projection is pretty close to what you're going to see from the audit. I've tried to accrue every possible thing in here. The only thing that's not in there would be the last 2 days of tax collections, because for me to give this to you Thursday of last week for the agenda, I couldn't post the August 30 or 31 batches for tax because they weren't tied out yet. So that's only going to make this go better. But, you know, I'll let the auditors tell me how close this is to actual. Any questions in regards to this year?
Safe to say we have a very strong financial position.
For this year?
At
If
least.
you look at the 3-year history I put on this page 1, the trend is good as far as for us being financially accountable.
I can't wait to get that certified report.
And if there's any other places to save money, we'll look for it.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Parmelee?
Good job, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, that moves us to item G, discussion by council of one other action on areas of contamination within town. Just recently, I received a letter, you can find it in your packet. There's this company called Western Start. And in the letter it says, notification to abutters of 254 Old Great Road and 465 Central Street properties in North Smithfield, dated August 25th. And this particular thing caught my attention, and I made a copy and had it dropped in the packet because, just again, over the line, we just have an issue in Uxbridge, Massachusetts, which is an article I saw in the newspaper, and it has the potential to affect the residents of our community. My concerns are that I would like to see the town administrator proactively move to address these potential hazards for our community and report to the council whatever findings you may be to contact with other agencies, whether it be Department of Environmental Management or any federal agency to ensure the safety of our community. Excuse me. That's basically it.
Mr. President, I was a little concerned that I had to read about this in the newspaper, that we didn't know about it. So I responded to the town administrator asking her to please get involved, get as much information as she can from Uxbridge. Also, the Department of Environmental Protection in Massachusetts has been watching this, and I guess DEM's involved. This could be a very bad thing. We have an environmental advocate in the town. That's a town planner. It's kind of like the town administrator serves as the public safety director, and the town planner also serves as the environmental advocate for the town. So hopefully, Administrator Hamilton might watch this video. I've sent her an email asking her to look into it and report back to us in public so that the public, if they have concerns, can ask these questions. And hopefully Administrator Hamilton will show or have her environmental advocate come in and give us as much information, because this is frightening what potentially could be going on there. So I share your thoughts. Thank you for putting this on here, by the way.
And my concern is, with the abutters up on Buxton Street in regards to the Valley-Breeze article that came out.
Yep.
I'd like the town to have information readily available for those residents regarding testing. I don't think it'd be out of line for those residents to start testing the wells and even their soil to make sure, if there's a concern of contamination and it's already been proven and cited, those residents on Buxton Street need to be proactive in monitoring for themselves to start and see if there's been a contamination migration onto their properties. But the town could be a resource from the state with information on how they can go about doing that.
If I may, because it's on here for discussion or other action, I'm wondering if this council should send a letter to the Uxbridge Selectmen, chairperson of the Uxbridge Select Committee, asking them to cooperate with us and give us the information they have regarding the fill that's been taken down from Worcester rail yards to be dropped into Uxbridge to fill in what used to be somewhat of a mining operation, backfilling in a quarry. So I would like to send, if you don't mind, Mr. President, we can ask Mr. Igliozzi to craft this letter and ask the President to send this to the President of the Selectmen in Uxbridge, asking them for their full cooperation and disclosure of what's going on in Uxbridge, which will affect the aquifer in North Smithfield.
And also maybe any information from the Massachusetts Environmental Protection Agency
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, federal government, EPA, because you know what, they may get involved because it's a rail situation. If it's coming out of transportation rail, I'm not sure. But the Department of Environmental Protection in Massachusetts, the equivalent of DEM in Rhode Island, yeah, it's a shame that, sorry, I wasn't reading the Worcester Gazette and the Boston Globe, but now we know about it, so we have to be brought up to speed with as much information as possible.
That's your
Is that a
motion.
motion?
Yeah, that's my motion. Thanks.
Cheers.
Listening to me.
Okay, motion by Councilman Zawinski, second by Councilman Sully, Councilman, in the chair. Let's have Mr. Rios craft a letter and send it to the Board of Selectmen of the town of Uxbridge, Massachusetts.
Well, send it to you, Mr. President, so that you can drop it off in Jeff Todd's office and then we can mail it directly to him.
And I'll sign it, and I'll sign it.
Yeah.
As well. You'll craft it, and I'll sign it, and we'll forward it. It's basically,
Do you know when that article was, so I could try to get a copy of it?
That's Thursday's Valley.
That's Thursday, okay.
But Jason, if you're gonna start, you can go back into the Gazette up in Worcester and the Boston Globe. They've been covering the story unbeknownst to us south of the border. We
Yes,
didn't.
I'm unaware too, I'd like to
Yeah,
look it up, see what
unfortunately.
it is.
Mr. Erickson, you want to relay them. He is the environmental advocate, so he should be on top of this as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think also our public safety director should be involved with this as well.
Yeah.
Could we find out if testing kits are available for our residents, or if they have to purchase them?
Well, water's gonna be tested. I wouldn't have a problem with the town paying for the water test.
Well, no, Buxton Street's all wells, isn't it?
Yes.
So, my question is, like, I know you can go to Home Depot and buy a water testing kit. Does EPA or around DEM offer water testing kits for residents? You know, I mean, I don't want to be burdensome to the residents, but I also think, you know, with that article, again, stuff unbeknownst to us, residents over in that area should be proactive in testing their wells.
Everybody should test water.
Everyone townwide should be, but now with this article coming to light.
But you know, here's the problem. See that fill? It's gonna take time for rain to percolate through that and get down into the substrate, get down into the aquifer. This, you know, it may show up in a year, 5, 10 years, but eventually it'll show up in the water system. If what we read in that article is being dumped over there, which it shouldn't be being dumped in the first place, it'll take time for that to perk into the water system. So for a year or two, everybody's gonna think, well, I don't have it. Then they're gonna smell of funny water and drink a
Well,
funny.
And that's just it, it's, you know, we mentioned it last time we talked about any contaminants was, you know, I can tell you right now, I've lived in town, this is 11 years now. I've tested maybe 3 times, 4 times, knowing full well that I should be testing a lot more, you know? I mean, like I said, if you have a deep well, it should be roughly once a year, shallow wells, multiple times a year, so. Again, the town can take a proactive approach. If, like I said, I don't know if the state offers free testing kits or anything like that, but if the town can take a proactive approach and it's there, people could just go to either the highway barn or the town hall, pick up a test kit. I mean, if it's not there and it's not, that's something we can discuss as a council down the road. But if it's something that's available through the state, I think it's a solution we should look at.
So do you want to make a motion to have the, either the town administrator or the environmental advocate contact DEM to see if these kits are available? I mean,
There we go.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Well, we have a motion already.
Oh, okay. Now let's vote on your motion first.
Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Alves, for the town solicitor to craft a letter to the Uxbridge Selectmen for Boucher to come to Alice and sign, for them to share their information and forward on this. Mr. Solly?
Yes.
Mr. Zawinski?
Yes.
Mr. Boucher?
Yes. Councilman Sully.
I'll make a motion to have the town administrator and for Mr. Erickson in his role as the environmental advocate for the town, reach out to the state DEM or the EPA to see if there are free testing kits available for our residents that may be affected by the recent discovery of what's going on over the mass line up across the street.
Can I second that for discussion? So, can we ask Mr. Erickson to start contacting DEM and EPA to see what they have on it, get it from the legitimate sources? We're gonna reach out to Uxbridge. why not be reaching out to DEM, Environmental Protection Agency, as well as the Department of Environmental Protection in Mass, right? To get that information, I know.
Yeah.
Just cover it all so we get as much information as soon as possible.
That's a good point.
So, do you want to amend it to that?
I just had that.
Okay, good, now I'll second.
Motion by Councilman Sullivan, second by Councilman Zawinski. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Alves, Mr. Solly,
Yes.
Mr. Zalinski.
Yes.
Mr. Boucher.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
No, it's only 9:30, what are you doing? Yeah, I'll second that.